Chapter 13 of The Clue of the New Pin by Edgar Wallace. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Yoganand. The Clue of the New Pin. Chapter 13. Mr. Stott combined the implacable qualities of the feudal lord with an amiable leaning toward the society and approval of his fellow men. There was a cafe near his office which was extensively patronized by grave businessmen, directors, bank managers, and superior cashiers. The price of luncheon had been scientifically fixed by the proprietor, so that whilst it was within the means of men of substance and standing, it was just beyond the reach of those whose limited incomes did not permit the luxury of lunching at Toby's, though it was well worth the money to sit at meal with men who had offices labelled private and drove to their businesses in polished limousines. Mr. Stott referred to the wistful folk who passed the door of Toby's to be swallowed up in less exclusive establishments as the hoi polloi, which he understood was an Italian expression. Toby's had almost acquired the status of a club. Occasionally, ignorant strangers wandered in to test the gastronomical excellence of the kitchen, and these were usually accommodated in obscure corners away from the hearing of intimate gossip. Mr. Stott had recently become a person to be listened to with respect, and the necessity for the keeping of the regular patrons of Toby's aloof from the vulgar herd was doubly urgent by reason of the very important matters that had to be discussed. "What I can't understand, Stott," said one of his hearers, "is why the devil didn't you send for the police?" Mr. Stott smiled mysteriously. "The police should have been there," he said. "And by the way, I need not remind you fellows that what I say to you is in absolute confidence. I'm scared out of my life lest that babbling servant of mine starts talking. You can never trust these gossiping girls. I confess, though, that I had half a mind not to send for the police, but to tackle the chinks myself. I should have done it too, but the girl was so frightened of being left alone." "Have they come since?" asked another interested hearer. "No, nor the woman. You remember that I told you of the woman who used to drive up to Mayfield every night in a car?" "It seems to me that the police ought to know," interrupted the first speaker. "One of her servants is bound to talk. As you say, you can't trust them. And then the authorities will want to know why you haven't reported the matter." "It's not my business," said Mr. Stott pharisaical. "It's for the police to get busy. I'm not at all surprised that the coroner's jury made the remark they did. Here's a man murdered." He exhibited the crime graphically. "At any rate, I'm keeping out of it. These Chinese criminals are dangerous fellows to monkey with." He had paid his bill and was walking out of the cafe when somebody touched him on the arm, and he swung round to see a tall, melancholy, and long-faced man. "Excuse me. Mr. Stott, I believe?" "That's my name." "I haven't the pleasure—" "My name is Carver. I'm an inspector of police, and I want you to tell me something about what was seen outside of Mayfield, both before and after the murder." Mr. Stott's face fell. "That servant of mine has been talking," he said, annoyed. "I knew she couldn't keep her mouth shut." "I know nothing about your servant, sir," said Carver sadly, "but I've been sitting in Toby's for the past 3 days, and I've heard quite a lot. It sounded to me almost as if you were the principal speaker on the subject, but maybe I was mistaken." "I shall say nothing," said Mr. Stott firmly, and the detective sighed. "I shouldn't hurry to make up my mind on the subject if I were you," he said. "It's certain to be a difficult business explaining to the public prosecutor why you have kept silent so long. It looks very suspicious, you know, Mr. Stott." Mr. Stott was aghast. "Suspicious? Me? Good heavens! Come to my office, Mr. Carver. Suspicious! I knew I should be dragged into it. I'll fire Eileen tonight." When Tab, in the course of the duty, called that night at the station, he heard the story from Carver. "If the poor nut had only had the pluck to telephone to the police when the girl first told him the story, we could have caught those birds. As it is, there's no sense in keeping the house under observation any longer. Who was the woman? That puzzles me. Who was the woman who night after night garaged her car in Trusmia's garden and let herself into the house carrying a square black bag?" Tab did not answer. The identity of the woman was no mystery to him. She was Ursula Artfern. The fabric of supposition fitted piece to piece. He remembered how he had come upon her in a deserted street at dawn, surveying a burst tire and the plainness of her dress. Inside the car was a square black case. But Ursula, working hand in glove with Chinamen, Ursula privy to these stealthy coming and goings, these midnight burglaries at Mayfield? That was unthinkable. "Their reason for breaking in after we had left the place was beyond me," Carver was saying. "I can only suppose that they hoped that we had overlooked something of value." "In Mayfield? There is nothing there now?" "Only the furniture. and one or two articles we took away but have since returned, such as the green lacquer box. As a matter of fact, they only went back yesterday. Mr. Lander thought of selling all the furniture and effects by auction, and I believe that before he left he put the matter in the hands of an agent. The Chinamen intrigue me, he said, though it is by no means certain that both Stout and his servant aren't mistaken. I gather they were considerably panic-stricken, and even I wouldn't undertake to distinguish the Chinaman from a European by the light of a match. Tab went up to Carver's private office, and they sat talking until close to 11 o'clock, at which hour their conversation was violently interrupted by the ringing of the telephone. "Call through for you, sir," said the voice of the sergeant on the desk, and a second later Carver recognized the agitated voice of Mr. Stout. "They're here now. They've just got in. The woman has opened the door. They've just gone in." "Who? Is that Stout? Do you mean into Mayfield?" asked Carver quickly. "Yes, I saw them with my own eyes. The woman's car is outside the door." "Go and get its number, quick," said Carver sharply. "Find a policeman and tell him, and if you can't find one, detain the woman yourself." He heard Mr. Stout's feeble expostulation and jumped for his hat. They boarded the first taxicab they could find and raced through the town at a breakneck pace, turning into one end of the quiet avenue in which Mayfield was situated, just as the tail lights of a car turned the corner at the other end. Mr. Stout was standing on the sidewalk, pointing dumbly, but with hysterical gestures, at the place where the car had been. "They've gone," he said hollowly. "Couldn't find a policeman. They've gone." "So I notice," said Carver. "Did you take the number of the car?" Mr. Stout shook his head and made a choking noise in his throat. Presently he commanded a speech. "Covered over with black paper," he said. "Who was it?" "A Chinaman and a woman," said the other. "Why in hell didn't you stop them?" snapped Carver. "A Chinaman and a woman," repeated Stout miserably. "What was she like?" "I didn't get near enough to see." Mr. Stout made the confession without shame. "There ought to have been police here. Lots of police. It's disgraceful. I'm going to write to the—" They left him quivering threats. Carver ran across the concrete garden, unlocked the door, and switched on all the lights in the hall. Nothing, so far as he could see, had been disturbed. The door to the vault was locked and had not been tampered with. Apparently the dining room had. The fireplace of the house was a broad, deep cavity lined with red brick and painted with a yellow cement. An electric radiator had replaced the stove, and Carter had made a very thorough examination both of the recess and of the wide chimney above. But he saw at a glance that his inspection had been short of perfect. One of the bricks had been taken out. It lay on the table, with its steel lid open, and Carver surveyed it thoughtfully. "That's one on me," he said. "It looks like the face of a brick, doesn't it? Look at that artistic cement pointing all round the edge." "It isn't cement at all, but steel. In fact, this must be about the only secret drawer in the house. I ought to have made more thorough inquiries from the builders." The box was empty except for a tiny rubber band. They found its fellow on the table. "There was something of importance in that box which has been taken out. Probably a bundle of papers. More likely 2 bundles. The rubber bands suggest 2. Anyway, they're gone." He glanced round the room. "And the green lacquer box has gone," he said. "I know it was here, because I put it on the mantelshelf with my own hands." He opened the door leading to the vault and satisfied himself that nobody had gained admission to the underground room. "We had better go along and see this police critic," he said grimly. It appeared that he had done Mr. Stout an injustice, for greatly fearing, he had crossed the road whilst the people were in the house, and he had made honest attempts to find a policeman. Having sent the toothache Ellen on that errand, which was successful, if the success was somewhat belated, for the policeman arrived with her whilst the inspector was talking to the merchant. "I not only crossed the road," said Mrs. Stout, "but I went inside the garden. They must have seen me, for the light in the dining room went out suddenly, and they came flying down the steps together." "And passed you, of course?" "They did not pass me," explained Mr. Stout emphatically, "because I was on the other side of the road before they were out of the gate. I do not think anything would have passed me." "What was the woman like?" asked Carver again. "I have an idea she was young, but I did not see her face. She was dressed in black, and as far as I could see, veiled. The other man was small. He only came up to her shoulder." "That's that," said Carver disconsolately when they came away. "They ought to have been caught if that man had the spunk of a rabbit. You're very silent, Tab. What are you thinking?" "I'm wondering," said Tab truthfully. "Just wondering." "What are you wondering?" growled the other. "I'm wondering whether old Trusmere was a much worse man than any of us imagine." said Tab calmly. The end of chapter 13.